Okay, I would like to call the meeting of the Public Works Committee of the Common Council to order. Today's Tuesday, September 6th, and it is now 7:02. I will take roll call. We have all members of the committee present: Tom Livingston, Brian Meek, Lisa Shanahan, Darlene Young, Dominique Johnson, and Nora Najelski-Eichner, and myself, Barbara Smith. I do have an announcement to make before we get started. We're going to start with a public hearing. I do have an announcement to make that we have known that Anthony Carr has been on a personal leave. He has given his letter of resignation. And so I just wanted to take a minute to thank him for his work for the city, particularly around flood mitigation, and wish him, his family, and his loved ones all the best moving forward. And just wanted to say that. So let's move on to the public hearing. It's the first item on the agenda. This is the public hearing for the honorary naming of Trinity Place to Bishop Joseph D. Clemens Sr. Drive. I would just like to just make a couple of notations here. Bishop Clemens is still alive. And so what that means is that we will, if the committee approves the honorary naming, which of course is, for an individual who has made a significant contribution to the community through public service and deeds, is respected for his or her accomplishments. But it will require a 2/3 vote by the entire Common Council because Bishop Clemens is still alive. And so that is how the ordinance reads. So I just wanted to mention that. I will mention it again before we take the vote later in the meeting. So do we have anyone signed on? I do know that we have one letter that was submitted. That was by Reverend Clark, and Mr. Livingston, it was written out to you specifically. I'm happy to read it, but I don't know if you wanted to read it yourself.
No, you can go ahead, Barbara. That's
okay.
Fine.
All right. Well, let's take public comment from the public first. So let's see. I see we have, Ms. Laricella, I do see that you have your hand up. So this is first for the public hearing regarding the honorary naming of Trinity Place for Bishop Clemens. So if that is something you'd like to comment on right now, please go ahead and unmute yourself. If you have comments about something else on the agenda, I would ask you to wait until later.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman Smith. I read the agenda, so I know the order. Mm-hmm. I just wanted tonight to lift up and praise the nomination of Reverend Clemens for the naming of a street after him. I know that it is not a tradition that living people get a chance for this high honor, but I do feel because of his great service to the community. I met him when he was a state representative for the 140th, but also had read about him and saw him at different events. The work he did, and others I'm sure will, or you may already, of course, have this in your biography, but his work as I think a Martin Luther King Fellow, Pivot Ministries was such and is such a great entity. I especially love the singing that occurred at certain events over the years when they were more active and on Quintard. As a teacher, husband, father, and of course, pastor. So I just wanted to sing praise for this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Laricella. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of Bishop Clemens? Ms. Smalls, welcome. Go ahead and unmute and you may speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Good evening, all. My name is Rose Beatty Smalls, and I am so delighted to speak on behalf of whom I call my spiritual father, this great icon, Dr. Bishop Joseph D. Clemens. I have known Dr. Clemens since I was 6 years old, and I'm far from 6 years old right now, guys. And he has always been a positive icon in my life. not a perfect man, because I don't know any perfect men, but a great man, always showing a positive attitude. And one of the many great things he told us while I was under his pastoral care, he told us that to always get plenty of knowledge, because knowledge is power. His thing was get all you can and can all you can get. So I truly love Dr. Clemens, Bishop Clemens, and I thought it was just great when our pastor, Dr. DeVell Hodge, put him up for this nomination. And again, I know it's already been said that they usually don't do this until someone is deceased, but it would be a great thing to give him his flowers while he's living, because he's done so much for Norwalk, so much. And he's been, like I said, he's been a great figure for Norwalk. So I just really wish you guys would really, really do this for him, to honor him this way. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Smalls. Okay, it looks like we have Dr. Hodge here, who has made the request. Go ahead, Dr. Hodge, you may speak.
Well, hello, thank you so much, Ms. Smith, and to the entire Public Works Committee and the Common Council, and also to our mayor. Thank you for this opportunity to share. As it has already been said, we desire to lift up the founder and establishmentarian of Miracle Temple Church of God in Christ of South Norwalk, and to give him this honor while he can see it, while he can be here with us, to acknowledge it and to know that his labors are not in vain, and that we appreciate the great work that he has done here in Norwalk and vicinity and beyond. Just a few things just to mention that he has accomplished. He has completed his bachelor's degree, his master's degree, his doctorate degree, founded the Miracle Temple Church in 1973, and also rebuilt with the help and giving of his small congregation, the Miracle Temple Church, to rebuild from ruins of then Trinity Episcopal Church, securing thousands of dollars to rebuild our edifice as it now is and stands today. He really shown himself as a builder and as a pioneer in ministry, opening the doors of the Miracle Temple Church to other congregations and organizations in the community that needed a place to be able to, as it were, lay their hats and to be able to build their ministries and their groups. He opened the door for that. Even in the Southern New England Conference of the United Church of Christ, several programs were named and initiatives were named in his honor. He served for many years in the Church of God in Christ, which is the largest Black holiness Pentecostal denomination in America. He served on its judiciary board for many years, and the former president of the Hampton Ministers Conference, which is the primary location for African American preaching and pastoral development, perhaps I would say, in the world. He was a Spanish teacher at Harding High School in Bridgeport, and an elementary school teacher. Norwalk Common Council member, co-founder of Pivot, as it has already been mentioned, and served as a Connecticut state representative for the 140th district. I mean, the list goes on and on of the accomplishments of this great leader and faith, man of faith. But one of the great things is that he's a loving father. He has a beautiful family, and that is his pride and his joy. And his wife, Mrs. Fran Collier Clemens, who's the commissioner of the City of Norwalk Police Department, even now. And so I am grateful to have been able to lift his name and to put this honor to our city council and to our Public Works Committee. in behalf of Bishop Joseph D. Clemens. But I would also like to add, if I may, Ms. Smith, a slight modification. I'm not sure if the city produces the names for those streets, but if the honorary name could be modified to Bishop Joseph D. Clemens Senior Way or Place, which would keep it in sync with Trinity Place, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hodge. I believe that we can follow up with that offline with Mr. Sotnick and just double check with the ordinance committee if there is any concern around that. But just that is noted that you are requesting that it would be Bishop Joseph D. Clemens Senior Way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak at this time? Okay. And then we do have one letter that was sent to the committee that I'll go ahead and read. It is from Reverend Richard Wesley Clark of Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, who we know is a wonderful community leader, very much involved in our community. And he writes the letter to Honorable Tom Livingston, President of the Common Council and Common Council members. I'm the Reverend Richard Wesley Clark, the pastor of the church mentioned above and president of the Interdenominational Ministers Fellowship of Norwalk and vicinity. I respectfully support the honorary street naming of Trinity Place to Bishop Joseph D. Clemens Senior Drive. Bishop Clemens attended Long Island University and Howard University. He earned a Master of Divinity degree from Yale Divinity School and a Doctor of Ministry degree from Colgate Rochester Divinity School. He was ordained by Bishop O.M. Kelly in 1952. In 1975, he was a Martin Luther King Fellow, and in that capacity, he traveled to West Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana. Please take note of the below listed contributions of Bishop Clemens to humanity. He was an elementary school teacher in Baltimore and a middle and high school teacher in Bridgeport and Norwalk. He is a former president of the Interdenominational Ministers Fellowship of Norwalk and vicinity. He is also the former president of the Hampton University Ministers Conference in Hampton, Virginia. Bishop Clemens is the founder and first pastor of Miracle Temple Church of God in Christ in Norwalk. Bishop Clemens was elected to the Norwalk Common Council in 1995. He was elected to the Connecticut House of Representatives in a special election in February 1997 and was re-elected in November 1998 and 2000. He served as a Norwalk Fire Department chaplain. He served as a member of the board of directors of Norwalk Economic Opportunity, that is NEON, founder of Pivot Ministries, a Christ-centered drug program. Respectfully submitted, Reverend Richard Wesley Clark, pastor and president. And just before I close the public hearing, I just want to double check. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak at this time? Just please raise your hand and we can move you over. I do see we have a lot of attendees who are watching. Okay, so I will close the public hearing at this time and move on to public input. This is if you have anything to speak on any other items for the agenda, please raise your hand. Ms. Laura Cella, go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't going to speak, but then I decided, especially with the announcement, the surprise announcement about Chief Carr, I wish him well. Things like this provide an opportunity, especially when there is a need for improvements of certain programs. Indeed, flooding and other wonderful work of the staff have occurred, but one of the areas that has been a laggard, and I have years on the record trying to offer suggestions, is the waste management and recycling program. Because we are in the process of, and I look forward to listening to a report of searching for a waste management and recycling professional, I believe it's an opportunity, especially with Chief Carr not going to be here. Waste management is a very important part of public works in every state in the union, especially in Norwalk. Long story short is I wanted just to be put on the record that as the search continues, or even if you selected someone, that I look forward to working with them, but I really offer again on the record my and a small cadre of recycling advocates that would like to help the city look for a wonderful person for this position. If the public could be in some manner at some level of this review and search, their needs and desires for attributes be recorded and be part of the process for review and interview. We want to make sure that whoever you hire, that they enjoy and initiate working with the public in a meaningful, creative ways and communicate well all of the possibilities to expand these programs for each waste stream. I know that I have not found that, unfortunately, in at least the last 3 people holding this position. I do hope this is an opportunity. As a member of the statewide Recycle CT board, I offer all of those wonderful free pieces of information that can help the city as it goes into its next phase. And I look forward to listening to the reports. The numbers just don't add up as far as the recycling numbers for the last several years. We could do better. We should have done better. We're getting $17.50 a ton still with this current contract. And of course, the food scrap recovery program has to, for it to succeed, we must do more education and we must make it more attractive and incentivize every month. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lauricella. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay. All right, so I'll close public input at this time and move on to new business. Before I do, I just want to mention that Ms. Johnson, and as I read the names at the start of the meeting for roll call, I don't recall if I read her name. She was here. She's having some computer problems, so she's been in and out. So I just wanted to note that she's trying to be here. She might have been at one time in terms of roll call. Okay, so new business, item 1, approve the minutes of the Public Works Committee meeting of Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. Would someone like to move that, please? Ms. Shanahan, thank you. Are there any changes, additions, deletions to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor of the minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, okay, opposed? Abstentions? Okay, Mr. Meek abstains. Otherwise, we are all in favor. Thank you. Moving on to item 2. Okay, so we have heard the public input, the public hearing for this item. So the item is approve the request for the honorary naming of Trinity Place to Bishop Joseph D. Clemens Senior Drive, with a notation that it has been requested that is changed to Way, which we will look into. Yes, Mr. Livingston.
Just first on that point, I don't think there's an issue. I mean, I'll defer to Vanessa and others, but I don't think there's an issue with us amending the item. And I think I heard to place or Way. I think place makes more sense because it's Trinity Place to another place, but that's just my opinion. But I also want to say that while I didn't know or don't know Bishop Clemens, I have to say I'm so impressed with him and his background. And I just think it's wonderful if we're able to do this while he's still with us. And hopefully that's for a long time. So I strongly support this.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Young.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak to this item as well. I moved to Norwalk in 1998, and I met Reverend Clemens probably a few years after that. But just to echo what Councilmember Livingston said, it really is a special honor to be able to do this while the person is still living. And sometimes I think we should be doing that. It's kind of strange how we honor people after their death and they're able to participate in the act. But you couldn't find a better person just based on his resume. And he was just a kind person. I mean, strip away everything that he's done and accomplished. He's a kind man. And I just always appreciated being in his presence and hearing what he had to say. And this is well-deserved. And I think the location is perfect. And I think we can do a lot more to that little area of where the church is and just make that a beautiful memorial to in his honor. So I hope we move this forward. And it's well-deserved. And his wife, we can't forget his wife, Mrs. Clemens, who was also engaged in the community as well. So you have two people who are very committed and dedicated to the city of Norwalk, which is just an amazing thing to witness, really. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Any other comments? Okay, yeah, I would just like to say, I don't know Bishop Clemens personally. I do know some of the people who spoke out for him. And I'm very impressed, like you, Mr. Livingston, to hear of his accomplishments and his contributions to the community and the difference that he has made in people's lives. And what better honor than to bestow this while he's alive too, and can be celebrated. It can be celebrated.
Chairwoman, I think it's evident in the number of people who are here in support of that. You just made me think of that.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen that often. So it's great to see that so many people are just here to even hear this part of the process.
Agreed. Okay, so I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Okay, excuse me, can I ask, are you calling for a vote on the?
We need to make a motion.
Yeah, well, no, leave that aside. I mean, are you gonna move it as is, or are you gonna change the drive to place or way?
And we want it to be place, correct?
Yeah, I think place makes my personal.
Yeah, because it's Trinity Place, so that it's consistent. So let's, thank you, Mr. Livingston. So we can go ahead and do that right now. So I'll call for a vote.
Well, I'll move the item.
Go ahead, thank you.
As amended.
Thank you, that works. Okay, all in favor? Please raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that carries unanimously, and it will be moved on to the Common Council at our next meeting next Tuesday. You are all invited to attend that meeting, and it does require a 2/3 vote, but we have a unanimous vote here, and that's good signifier. Okay, let's move on to item 3. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into a subordination agreement and such other documents incidental thereto with Metropolitan Realty Associates, LLC, with respect to the city's general utility easement recorded in volume 8478, page 249 of the Norwalk Land Records, and in connection with the Metropolitan Realty Associates, LLC, Euler, I can never get that right, application to DEEP. This is a general utility easement for Bates Court. And so I just realized I need to note that Vanessa Valadares is here with us, and she is our acting Chief of Public Works at this time. So Vanessa, I'll turn it over to you. And I know we have Darren Callahan, our attorney, here to discuss as well.
Thank you so much. This is another subordination that will come in front of you again. We did a couple, I believe, in this past year. Attorney Callahan can get into the details, but it's again, we have this developer that ended up having to file for the LUR. We do have an easement in the parcel, so we need to be subordinated to whatever they're gonna file on. That's pretty much the bottom line. I'll pass to Attorney Callahan, and he can give you more of the details.
Right. Thank you, Vanessa. Can everyone hear me okay? So That's correct. We have a general utility easement. It was a result of the abandonment of Bates Court that used to exist adjacent to and right next to what is now MLK Drive, and runs along the border of 1 Bates, where it abuts MLK. It's a situation where the property was developed. The owner has determined that for environmental purposes and compliance with deep regulations, they need to apply for what's called an environmental land use restriction, or commonly referred to as an ELR. And in part of that process, DEP requires the applicant to obtain from any encumbrance holder, whether it be a mortgagor or an easement holder or otherwise, anyone holding an interest in the land, to subordinate that land interest to the environmental land use restriction. In other words, giving the environmental land restriction priority over those earlier recorded encumbrances. So nothing unusual about this. As Vanessa mentioned, we've seen this kind of arise regularly in the past 2 or so years, and I expect that to continue in the foreseeable future. And so with that being said, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, Mr. Meek?
Yeah, so this is Mike DeScala's property on Bates Court. Why was that not recognized at the time of construction? Why are we doing this after the fact? I mean, this is like about 5 pages of legalese. It doesn't, I can't interpret it. I understand what you're saying now. Thanks for the plain English, but why would this not be done in advance of the fact? Thanks.
Yeah, Councilman Meeks, typically ELRs are applied for, or in fact, I'm not an environmental land use attorney, so I can't tell you specifically, but I've only seen them applied for after the property's been developed. And I believe it to be the case that you really can't apply one until after the property's been developed. So I suspect that's the reasoning. There's a lot of legalese in the document that's intended to protect the city. We actually use a format that is very, very similar to what Eversource uses, which is a very good format. And we typically receive these applications while other similar public agencies are receiving them on the same property. In this case, I don't believe Eversource or any of the utility, in fact, we don't have any utilities currently in the easement area. We just have the general utility easement. But typically what you'd find is if we have an easement, there are other general utilities in the area that will also be subordinating. So any party holding an encumbrance in the property would have to be the subordinate in order for DEEP to approve the application for an ELR. So I don't think there's anything unusual about the timing of the application request. Ultimately, it benefits the city to make sure that this property is on the tax rolls and can operate, and part of that process is complying with the DEEP regulations.
May I add another thing? So Councilmember Meek, also, I just want to let you know that most of the times we do know that this process is coming during the development of the process, because there are a lot of times that if we have some type of easement or any structure in the parcel, they usually contact us in advance, because they don't want to develop an area where they're not going to be able to get the ELUR. So we have to be in agreement. And there were cases in the past that what we did in order to be in accordance to subordinate we have to ask them to do some improvements to some of the structures that we have there. So there were cases that we asked them to add things for us to inspect, or the line pipes that is existing and all that. But usually, at least in this past 2 years, all the time that we have this subordination, that they usually file towards after the project is completed. And that's when they send it to us, and that's why we see afterwards. But most of the time, we are aware that this is going to happen during the whole plan review.
So I do want to add one thing. I have gotten more familiar with the DEEP regulations in the recent future because of all these applications. And DEEP amended the regulations recently, which requires a certification that the encumbrance holder has agreed to has actually agreed to the language of the subordination agreement prior to DEEP being willing to review their application. So as a result now, effectively, you really can't address it before the development. It almost necessarily has to occur afterwards as a practical matter. But why that? I think it's just where it kind of ends up in the development process is, once the land is developed, it's effectively capped, meaning there's a soil barrier, a barrier of clean soil and or asphalt now protecting the general public from, the environmental conditions that DEEP has determined meet or exceed the healthy levels for safety. It just necessarily occurs at the tail end.
Okay, thanks. So I guess that answered my question. The horse is out of the barn, but this is, just to be clear, this is South Norwalk Electric Works, not Eversource, correct?
I'm sorry?
This is South Norwalk Electric Works?
Oh, yeah, no, I
That
was just
domain
giving,
over this?
I was just giving an example of when there's other utilities. Commonly, what I've seen regularly is Eversource's happenstance, and I was just mentioning that the subordination agreement, the form that we use, is very similar to the form that Eversource uses. So the language you're seeing in the agenda backup is very similar to what the in-house counsel at Eversource is recommending to their client.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments? I know I need to ask for a motion. I need for someone to move this item before we vote on it. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Livingston moves the item. Again, any further questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay, Mr. Meek opposes, and the motion carries. Thank you.
Right, thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Okay, moving on to item 4. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Gangres Ford LLC for the purchase of 2 2022 F-350 crew cab dump trucks for a sum not to exceed $111,246.60. Can someone move that item, please? Ms. Young moves the item. I'd just like to note that these trucks were approved in the capital budget, and it's just the contractor, that in terms of ordering them. Is there anything to add, Ms. Valadares?
That's correct. Mrs. Smith, that's exactly what it is. We have that in our budget for every year. Mr. Torres is here, so he can add more to it.
I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has about the vehicles.
Okay, any questions? Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, thank you. Chris, a couple things. I'm guessing that you couldn't do any hybrid with this type of vehicle. Is that correct?
So, I'm not calling anyone out, but it is very difficult, Tom, to get vehicles. Although the city has a standardization of our vehicles, we typically get Fords. The police department is looking at Tahoes for vehicles because you cannot get Fords. So all rules as we know it, when it comes to trucks and steel and everything else is kind of, we're at a crossroads. So we either get them now when we can, or we can't. I did look into an electric sweeper at a conference I was in, and they're $800,000. The sweepers that we currently purchase are Elgin Pelicans. They're about $260,000, maybe a little bit more or less. But the electric technology in anything that we're trying to do is not there yet. Trust me, when it comes, I will be the first person to say, hey, let's be green. But it's not there yet, Tom, and I'm sorry to report that.
No, I had to ask. And the other question I had is you and I had spoken some time back about the size of the crew cabs. And I don't know if that was this type of vehicle, but you mentioned having cabs that are more than 2 people. I mean, is that something you're still considering?
Yeah, so I don't know why we hadn't thought of this earlier. Well, I do know it was frowned upon, but my thing is being that we're trying to be green, instead of having 2 trucks at a job with 3 guys, let's have 3 guys go in the same truck to the job. So it's just a common sense approach to being environmentally friendly. And that's the best we can do right now at this point.
No, I think it's great. Thank you.
Mr. Meek.
Hi, thanks. I'm not against these at all. I'm just for my edification. How does, when we get delivery of these, do we handle the decaling, the extra fitting that makes this a city truck? How does that work nowadays?
So we are not ordering small trucks with plows anymore. We have enough big trucks with plows, and it's not cost efficient for us to do that. Up until now, we've had two-man low boys, what they're called, F550 Fords, that only carry 2 or 3 people. And we're looking to do extended cabs with the dump body, all hydraulic like we usually do, but it's our way of being environmentally friendly again. I don't know why we haven't done this sooner, but we're doing it now to kind of help curb the gap before electric becomes the norm. If that answers your question, I'm sorry if it doesn't.
Not really. I'm just like, when you get the truck delivered to wherever we have them now, South Smith Street, like, does it come with DPW stickers on it, radios? Who does that stuff?
So Northeastern does the radios. We're in the process right now of upgrading our radio system, and that's a citywide. That's fire department, police department, DPW. We would install the radios moving forward, and also we decal our trucks ourselves.
Awesome. Thank you.
But the lights, Councilman Meek, come prepackaged. We order them with the lights already on them and all that stuff. We just letter them, decal them, and send them out on the road.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Okay, any other questions? Chris, yeah, I'd just like to take a minute to, thank you for, always considering the environmental aspects of, of our purchases. We've talked about this numerous times, and you have mentioned in the past that the technology, I mean, it's just not there yet. But I appreciate that you're always looking to, more sustainability and environmentally sound trucks. So, all right, that being said, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that carries unanimously. Moving on to item 5, authorize the interim chief of operations and public works to execute an order on contract to the agreement between the city of Norwalk and Ty and Bond, Inc. for construction inspection observation services for an amount not to exceed $151,000. Accounts noted. Would someone like to move that, please? Ms. Shanahan moves it. This is regarding the Dreamy Hollow Drainage Project. The funds are currently in the capital improvement budget, and it's just a matter of adding the money to this particular project. So Ms. Valadares, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So as you know, we have an on-call contract with Diane Bond to provide inspection service for us. We always have, we usually fund about 1 to 1.5 inspector per year. We use one of them full-time on our paving program. And then we knew that as soon as we started Dreamy Hollow, we're gonna need also another person there. We were waiting for the project to really pick up and also for the new fiscal year to kick in so we could add funds. So it's not an amendment to their contract. You guys gonna see an amendment to their contract next year. I believe that's when we could extend another year with different rates. This is just really encumber money to the bill.
Any questions? Mr. Meek.
Yes, a couple of questions here. How many in-house inspectors do we have today?
As of now, I only have 2. One is the permit inspector that is dedicated full-time for the permit division, where all the time that you do a road encroachment permit, you have to call for inspection before you backfill. So one person just is for that. And the other one is an inspector that we have, but we let TMP borrow him full-time for now, because he's overseeing a couple of projects for them. Some traffic projects, the NRVT trail, and sometimes he swings by and check on a couple of other things. We have and that's why we have the need for full-time inspectors. We have a lot of work going on, and the in-house staff is busy overseeing the projects, managing the projects, putting bids out. But sometimes it is good to have a person there watching the contractor all day.
Thanks. So you have 2 full-time open recs for full-time in-house inspectors?
No, it's not open, it's
understand?
to fill. I have 2 people already working.
You have
full-time.
2 people to fill. Okay. So,
Not to
right, because
fill.
right now,
Sorry.
this contract's a
I
burn
don't-
rate of
I'm
this
sorry.
contract's at a burn rate of $1,000 a day, and that requires 8 hours full-time inspection on a line install. That's right.
We can use them on all the projects that we listed. So this is for probably 1.5 inspector from now until end of March.
Okay, thanks. When does the department look to fill the 2 full-time
We
positions that
don't
are
have
open?
an opening, Council Meek. Let me, maybe there was a misunderstanding. I don't have any
Okay.
openings on the staff. I have already in-house 2 full-time inspectors that we use them all day long. All the staff has been used as of now. This is just to really fulfill the extra work that is needed on a daily basis to run the department.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to understand. So we have this project that's going to go on 10 months. Does the city not have anything going on in the future that might require insourcing of full-time inspectors?
We switched. What we did is a few years ago, we came in front of the committee, and what we ended up deciding was that sometimes the price wasn't that much more to have someone outsource for the inspection. The other thing that we faced in the past, and now again, is that it's very hard to hire new people on those positions.
Okay. Okay, so we're just going to continue to budget $1,000 a day for inspectors.
Correct.
That's what this one comes out to. Okay,
Yep.
that's 250,000 a year for one inspector.
No, I think that again, this would be for 1.5. So it's 2. It's 2 inspectors until March. It's 2
Okay,
inspectors.
for
But
for
remember,
1,000
we are also that we are paying all the fringe that when you have a full-time employee, you still have also all
Okay.
the benefits. So we do pay also for those benefits. So the rates that we are paying to them would be very similar to the rates that we would have been paying for a in-house person. But the good thing about this person is that we can use as needed. In other words, we only pay as we use. So usually we engage them at the beginning of the paving season, that is more or less mid-April, and most of the time by mid-December, we don't need them anymore. Due to the extension of the drainage project, we need these people to kind of be working throughout the winter, because this winter in particularly, we're gonna have the project going on.
Okay, so what you just said, this isn't limited to the Dreamy Hollow drainage project. This is also as needed on whatever else.
Paving,
Comes up?
sidewalks, yes.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, why is that not detailed in this proposal, or I just missed it? It looks like it's exclusively for Dreamy Hollow.
We already have one person. This is just to be added the amount of the funds. So the regional contract was exactly saying that was for also the paving, sidewalks, and other projects that you may want. And also remember that we are using a lot of ARPA funds to cover this. So if you see where is the resolution, the last 3 items, it's all related to ARPA funds. So this also gives us a little more flexibility and be able to fund this inspector.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for filling in for our vacancy.
Yeah, we don't have the vacancy, and again, it does, because we believe that it's the on-call inspector. It does make more sense than hiring someone full-time, because most of the time we just use them for 8 to 9 months a year.
Okay, I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear. Thank you for filling in for what you're filling in for. I know
Oh, okay, I'm sorry,
all-
thank you.
all of a sudden, and thank you for stepping up.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add too that, we've had this discussion in past meetings, Mr. Meek, and I know that what has been brought to our attention is that oftentimes, by contracting out here is the expertise that these companies have, in particular Time Bond here, is they have a particular expertise that we need. And so because of that, as we've talked about in the past, is absolutely worth this investment. I think, Mr. Livingston, I think I might have seen your hand up.
Well, you just made the comment I was going to make. So.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Sorry, opposed? Okay, Mr. Make opposed, abstentions? All right, motion carries almost unanimously, sorry. Okay, moving on now to information and discussion. We have the tree operations and programming report.
Yeah, Mr. Tor will be able to go through the next couple of items.
Okay, guys, give me a second. I have to get my glasses because I can't see. I'm old. All right. The tree report. For the month of August, we removed 10 trees on Parks property, 1 tree of heaven, 1 birch, 4 maple, 2 pine, 1 oak, and 1 cherry. School property, we removed 12 trees, 2 oaks, 2 ash, 5 maples, 1 poplar, 2 pines. In the city right away, we removed 21 trees, 4 ash, 2 tulips, 4 pines, 7 maples, 1 little linden, 1 oak, and 2 cherries. We did safety pruning of 19 trees at Parks property, 13 trees at school property, and 22 trees in the right of way. That's my whole tree report. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Ms. Young.
I can't hear you.
You're
You're
muted.
silent.
Are you all right?
I thank you for that, and maybe there might have been another opportunity to ask this question, but we're talking about trees. So on the exits and entrances, the trees have been cut down, and I'm sure that's by the state, right?
Yes,
And do we know what that number is? Of how many trees have actually been removed?
Councilwoman Young, we do not. Just so I'm on the record as saying this, the state statute is very clear that you have to post trees. The state DOT clearly does not think that the state statute applies to them. So they have removed every tree along the Merritt Parkway. They do not tell me why or what their reasoning is. So if you have any kind of power to be with the state, I'd be happy to know how they get to do that without posting or following the state regulations on tree removal.
I just want to add one thing, Mrs. Young. On the exit 16, that is part of a state project. We are happy to talk about it later when we're discussing the projects. But the state, part of that project is really it's the median project. But one thing that is also beneficial for Norwalk is that the drainage improvements was something that we really fight with the state for many years, because that will improve the quality of the water that will go into Norwalk River. So now, before, all the oil coming from I-95 was really sent directly to the river, and now that will be improved. So they are cutting the trees now for the project, but at the same time, we already receive a commitment from the state that they have a very big landscape plan to put the trees back. We already, even today, I signed a letter that I sent it to them to even ask them to consider even more in writing, but it's already pretty much a verbal agreement that they're going to come back and plant it. You guys probably going to see some of that being reestablished only next year around fall due to the season. And another thing that I would just want to add to what Chris said, I know he just reported on the cutting of the trees, but the reason that we cut trees and we haven't planted trees is that we're not during the planting season. Usually during the summer, we do not plant any trees, but we are happy to announce that Paul went out with already some groups, and we identify hundreds of trees that will be planted this fall. So I believe that around November, that usually we start the planting season between October and November, the numbers will change, and we're going to hear about a lot of the trees that will be planted. We have a very solid budget on planting trees, and we're going to spend in the next couple of years. But I just want to put on the record, that's why no trees have been planted this month.
I just had one more question before you go on, if you don't mind, Chairman. So were the trees that were cut down counted in our canopy? Was that part of our canopy number or no?
No.
Okay.
But if I can echo something that Vanessa just touched on, is we're in the process of, like, we recently got a grant and we got a donation to the city to plant trees. And the big question is, we're going to be planting $1 million in trees over the next 10 years. How do we water them after the 2-year water period expires with Olmsted? So we are in the process of a municipality of figuring that out, whether it's DPW, outsourcing, who knows? But we are forward thinking of how we're going to maintain these trees after the 2-year period that they're planted by Olmsted. So we are proactive. We are looking progressively forward with our tree program. We want our canopy to be the best in the state, and that's our goal.
Thanks, Chris. Ms. Nadjeski-Eichner.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Two quick questions, Chris, and I think you already alluded to my first question with the reference you just made now to thinking about how we're going to care for the trees after the 2 years. But any update on how our trees are surviving the drought conditions? Today, obviously, is a godsend for the city in many ways, but are there any concerns that we need to be aware of for how the drought has affected the trees so far?
There are absolutely concerns. Anytime there's a drought, there are concerns. And I can tell you that the sycamores planted along North Water Street at Oyster Shell Park have been shedding leaves since the beginning of July. And it's early, and I'm hoping next year that they come back. But it's not an exact science. So I hope they come back, but I'm not sure. So that's a hard question to answer because the drought is absolutely affecting every tree we have. And it's impossible to water every single one. But I'm hoping for the best in today's rain. If we get some good fall rain, it helps us. But to answer your question, yes, it is absolutely affecting the weather. Is our drought is affecting our tree canopy.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate the thinking that you're doing going forward for, how we're prepared for future years if something like this occurs again. The second question, you mentioned briefly taking down, it sounded like you said only one tree of heaven. And I just wanted to follow up on that because I know that the city did send out an alert about the lantern flies. Could you comment at all on sort of tree of heaven eradication, anything that we need to be aware of in terms of plans for trying to prevent the lantern fly spread?
I cannot comment accurately on that at this time, but I'd be happy to get back to you with that information. I'm sorry that I can't answer it right this second.
No, but that would be great. I would appreciate that. My understanding is that there's a connection there because they need those particular trees for a certain part of their development. So yeah, it's certainly not something you need to answer tonight, but I would look forward to hearing in the future if that's part of your planning
Of course.
for the tree management going forward. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate the work.
Thank you.
Ms. Shanahan.
Yes, the tree of heaven was also going to be one of my questions and about whether or not there was a plan for eradication there. So I'd love to be informed about that too, Chris. And I actually am meeting with some environmentalists this week to talk about it. So I'll share anything I learned about that. Then my second question was, of course, I'm just hoping that the 21 trees or whatever that you took out were things that just absolutely positively had to go. I'm just sure I'm just always staying on that. Like, I'm sure there's a good reason to take them all away. So that was the third thing. And then the third question I have really is what information do you have, if any, about the RFP for the tree inventory and the tree canopy study? I think that an RFP went out. I think Jess Vonacek's office was covering that, but I think you participated. Have you, is the period done yet for submissions, and what, if anything, can you share?
I cannot share anything because I have not heard what the RFP produced. But I would be also, I'm taking notes, so I'd be happy to get back to you, Councilwoman Shanahan, on that particular question.
Okay, anything else? Ms. Nadjelski-Eichner, did you have something else or did you forget to put your hand down? I think she forgot to put her hand down. Okay, let's move on to the monthly solid waste report for June and July, and then we could just go ahead into the food scrap drop-off report too.
Do you mind if I start with the food scrap? Because I believe that good information should come first. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to switch up to the food scrap. So as you all know, the pilot food scrap started in Rowayton, and for the first 2 years, it was 65%, 35% for Rowayton and the Norwalk Transfer Station. I am happy to report that as of right this second, it is almost 50-50. It's 49-51, and that's before we even start the Cranberry Park drop-off site. So the rest of the city is catching up to Rowayton, and I think that that's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So I'd love reporting on that first. If you want the numbers, I'll give them to you, but trust me, it's 49% and 51%, which is better than 65-35.
That's huge. Thanks for that bit of information. Yeah, that's a big change. So that must mean people are really getting onto this program and making the trip over. So awesome.
Good that I'm on the ground floor of this process. All right, so moving on to solid waste. I know that earlier in this meeting, there was some talk about the recycling. So I'm here to report on our current state. Curbside tonnage, we are minus 11% from last year to this year. Our municipal solid waste out is down 16% from last year at this time. Our transfer, let me start with recycling. So our recycling is down 4% at the curbside. It's down 2% at the transfer station. So again, we're seeing trends that are coming back from COVID, where recycling is coming back in a big way. There was no commodity market for a while, but it's coming back. We have an RFP coming up shortly with our solid waste contract. So we are looking at that. We're forward thinking and we are progressing. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about trends that you may have, other than we are moving forward. You're welcome.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Okay, very good. Let's move on to, okay, so now we have a current and upcoming project status. So Vanessa, I'll ask you to take over there.
Thank you. So we did a little bit of a change on the agenda after our last meeting in July. We are just trying to give more transparency on the projects that engineering has been working. And again, I'm happy to change again if you guys feel that we need to add it one more time to make it more clear. So the way that we did it is now we are going to list most of the projects that we're currently working on at this time, and we broke up in how we usually divided the office, right? At construction, whatever has been already advertised or is just pending contract, and what is in the pipe that is under design. We're only going to report during the meeting on the status of the construction, so it's not too long, but we are happy to answer any questions related to any of the other projects that you see listed there. So what I'm going to do is that we have all the senior engineers in the meeting here, and pretty much each one is responsible for a couple of them. So I'll let them report on each project. And again, if you guys want that we change something for next meeting, just let us know and we're happy to accommodate. So the first one will be Dreamy Hollow, the storm drainage improvements, and then Drew will be the one that will be able to give you a little update on that.
Okay, at Dreamy Hollow, we've begun work a few months ago. Work is going well. We expect work to extend into 2023, which is just a slight change after having recently added more sanitary scope to the project. Want me to move on to the paving contract, or does anyone have any questions?
So is that okay if we keep going, and then if you guys have any questions you ask at the end, would that work? Okay, so
that
yeah.
way, you know, if somebody has like something major, just raise your hand and go ahead and ask the question. But you know, we know these are ongoing projects. We don't need a whole.
Okay, so keep going, Drew, please.
Okay, so for the paving contract, that also is going well. We expect Philo Street to be paved by the end of this week. West Avenue from Pine Street Extension to North Main, that's near the mall, and also Putnam are scheduled for milling and paving the week of September 19th. And we hope to begin reclaiming the neighborhood of Button Ball, Random, Rainbow, and Jarvis by the end of this month. That'll bring us into the neighborhood of the Ohio Plymouth neighborhood, which we hope to complete by November. I know there's a lot of anticipation for us to complete that neighborhood. And we also anticipate beginning the installation of ADA compliant ramps along a portion of Flax Hill Road, which we also anticipate milling and paving before the end of the paving season.
Okay, thank you. So the next one will be Dan Stanton. Dan oversees all our concrete curb and sidewalk projects. So then if you don't mind, go through your projects quick.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you everyone tonight for that. So the concrete curb and sidewalk program is two separate contracts right now. We have Grasso performing the 2020 contract, and they're nearly substantially complete on their work. They're going to be substantially complete on Plymouth Avenue this week, and then moving over to Thames, Hudson, and Aiken to complete that portion of the neighborhood. And Deering Construction is working and substantially complete on Ohio and moving to Delaware to complete that ahead of the paving program. The next streets after that include moving to Buckingham in October to perform that work. And ideally, our curb and sidewalk program, besides for the mobility and pedestrian needs, is as a result of what we anticipate for our paving program under improving the curbs and the ramps at intersections for that.
Thank you. We also have our on-call drainage. Remember, that's the one that all goes first. Drew will be able just to, we're not doing too much now. We just finalized a couple of bigger projects, but Drew can.
Sure.
Where we are.
So recently on the on-call drainage contract, we've just finished up a small project on Island Drive so that we might pave that road, which we had postponed in order to complete that drainage improvement. We recently completed an emergency repair done on Shirley Street, and we anticipate future work at Hillwood and Vale. There's a small bit of work that we can complete.
Looks like he froze. Oh, here's coming back. We're losing you, Drew.
Yeah, we lost Drew.
Lost him. So let's move on then.
Yeah, it's okay. So I think the next one we can go to the Rowayton Bridge. Paul was overseeing that one.
Good evening, everyone. As you probably noticed, some of the council members, Mr. Livingston and Ms. Shanahan, the Merritt Parkway guide rail was installed at the bridge last week. The punch list work is going to be done this week with some topsoil and seeding, and they should have everything completed for that work for that whole project by the end of next week.
And then we have, again, I just listed the state GOT projects. I'm not sure if you guys need any updates on that. I think that the two major ones that has been happening in town, of course, because besides the walk, it is really the Strawberry Hill. If you have driven by there in the last couple of weeks, you will notice that they are now on phase 3. They ended up just changing again the traffic pattern right before school started, went very smooth. And then they are starting demolishing the north portion of the deck. With that, we believe that they may be able to finish by summer 23. That is kind of, they were delayed, but the first delay was up to the end of the year of 23. And now they told us that with this change, they may be able to finish by summer of next year. So that is good news. And the other one is what I just said before related to the I-95 median project. So we don't have anything. I wasn't planning to report on anything else unless if somebody has any questions, and we're happy to answer.
You know, while we're waiting to see if anyone has any further questions, I would just like to comment, you know, it's really nice to see the paving projects going on. I know a lot of them had to wait until, you know, there were, you know, work done by Eversource or the gas company or whatever, and the temporary fixes had to settle. We've all gotten a lot of complaints about some of that. So it's really good to see some of those projects moving forward now. Driving up West Rocks is a pleasure again. So thank you. Ms. Majewski, I can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And Vanessa, just a follow-up question to a conversation we had started earlier. I had received a question, and I think several of us have received a question from a constituent regarding Woodward Avenue and the pump station there and flooding that occurs in that area. And in the question being raised to you, it became clear that there's actually 2 systems at work in that area with 2 sort of potential repair paths necessary. So I was wondering if you could provide an update for the sewer system, which as I understand it is work that is in process, and explain the sort of difference between the sewer system and the stormwater system in that area and what might be issues going forward there. I would really appreciate getting that information out so that constituents in the area understand what is and is not currently on the project schedule for that area.
Sure. So actually, I think that the best thing is that I share my screen and then I can show you, because we do have 2 pump stations in that area. And I want to show you because it is confusing. We have the sewer pump station, that is the one that is under construction now, actually is being updated, and the other one is a storm drainage. So let's start with the sewer one. The sewer one is really this little house that we have here at Woodward Avenue Park. So this one, WPCA is responsible for their maintenance, and as part of their capital improvements, they are now upgrading some of the equipment, not to deal with capacity, but just to bring it up to speed and with the newest technology. This project was supposed to be completed, but unfortunately, with all the delays and back orders that we are seeing, the controls hasn't been arrived yet. So as of now, you know, the hardest thing to be able to buy around here now are controls. Everything that needs controls got really delayed. And of course, the pump, the controls for the pump is delayed. So as of now, we are seeing as the spring of next year when we're going to finalize this project. So this project, the contractor is Colvax. Again, we are not doing major changes to the pump station, is really upgrading and bring it to new pumps and new controls, but unfortunately is delayed. So this is really for a sewer system that we run in this area. I believe that some of the questions that we received, and that was part of the confusion, was about a storm drainage pump station because of the flooding that happens in this area. That project is actually not in our books, and I'll explain exactly what happened there. We do have, though, and I'll show you what we call a pump station so you can understand. I'm gonna just drop the guy right in here so you can see. So we have kind of, it's more like a little manhole that we have on the sidewalk right here where is my cursor. And what happened is that we have a drainage system that comes from this area, from Lawrence, and the pipe comes into a low elevation, okay? And then we have a second system that is right here at Woodward that ended up being discharged on Lowndes Avenue, and that here is the outfall so you can see. But this pipe that comes all the way here comes in a much higher elevation. So what we have that we call a pump station, let me just put the guide there, is nothing more than a pump buried under the sidewalk that is able, let me just find it, where is, it's right here, hold on, let me go to the side. That is here. You see where we have like this kind of manhole. So this is our storm pump station. So what happened is that you have a pipe coming to the pump in a low elevation and kind of just pump up to meet the head and then drops into the other gravity system that we have on Woodward. So what happened is the Woodward system, of course, get affected by the tide, right? And that's when we have issues and flooding in the area. So what happened is that if we have a combination of a big storm and a high tide, the gravity is not strong enough to push that water out. And that's where you're going to see some flooding in the area. So around 2013, the engineering department engaged Maloney McBroom for a concept study for the flooding in this area. And one of the suggestions that they did was that we will need to really upgrade this, pretty much not upgrade because there is no space here, but find a place for another pump station around this area and make this system right here as a pressurized system. So this way, the pumps would be able to be pressurize the pipe. And even though the water may be coming in, we're going to have more pressure and push the water out, and this would alleviate the flooding in the area. The problem with that study was the price tag that by then in 2013 came around $5 million. Remember that by then, those projects weren't funded at that amount. Like I remember that we did Lockwood, that was one of the last drainage projects that we did, that was probably 12 years ago, and that one cost 2.2 million. So we came up with a study that we needed at least $5 million. So now, just put things in perspective, this administration and you council members, you are now supporting funding those projects. And that's why now we have Dreamy Hollow under construction that is an $8 million project. Now, another thing that I just want to point out, although there is flooding in this area, most of the flooding that happens in the area happens on the streets. And is not as much in some other areas that we have in town that the flooding affect the houses, that the water really get into the house, not on the yard, but in the house. So there is also one thing that needs to be considered on which project needs to be funded is what millions of dollars will bring us back. So we know that if it is most of the water is only affecting 1 or 2 residents, maybe it's not the best place to spend $5 million. Maybe there are other neighborhoods in town where we spend the $5 million, but you are able to alleviate flooding into many, many houses. So Nora, I hope that this kind of more or less answer your question. So as of now, we do have a study that was done in 2013 for the storm to this area. If there is appetite to fulfill and try to move this to a design and construction, our recommendation will be that we should probably look again at that study. The numbers may be a little bit off, not only on cost estimate, but also on the rainfall that has been happening. And then again, I believe that it will be like probably a good $6 to $7 million to be able to really include a pump station and make the system pressurized.
Great. Thank you, Vanessa, for that update. That's really very helpful and very helpful to understand the two systems involved and where I think some confusion has arisen between the sewer and the storm. I'm obviously not making a recommendation at this point that we move forward a project that large. I think, it's helpful to have an understanding of the situation. And I think certainly a series of concerns for constituents that are worth including in our ongoing conversations as we prioritize various areas. But as you said, I think that generally it seems like the priorities has gone to places where houses are experiencing flooding. That said, I think the update on the sewer system upgrade is also appreciated. And you can confirm, I think, as we discussed, that many different projects in the city are experiencing the problems with controller delays. It's not just this particular upgrade in Woodward, on the Woodward Avenue sewer, correct?
Correct. We even like GMP, they cannot even buy like a traffic cabinet now because it's all controls inside. So even like the cars and the trucks that we're trying to buy, as Chris said, we were at this conference and the guys were saying the same thing, that they cannot even finalize the trucks. Sometimes there are 1 year to a year and a half time to get them because of the controls. So hopefully, I think that in another 6-7 months, we're going to start, the market will get back to what it was. But as of now, we're seeing all that delay.
Okay, well, thank you. And, we'll continue, I hope, to discuss the sort of Woodward Avenue situation and see how it fits into other planning that's going on in the area and see if there is something potentially that we can consider that would have a lower price tag. So it's definitely have on the radar, and I appreciate that.
And in our end, what we're going to do, all the time that we have a storm, usually we dispatch all the engineers out to make sure that we want to, all the critical areas. We have a map where we monitor. Remember that there was a presentation to you all. So we're going to look deeply in this area again and try to really see if it is still the drainage only affecting the roads or how many houses are now being affected by it.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much for your question, Nora, and that very detailed explanation. We did all, get the email. We were all alerted to that situation, so I think it really helps explain it. So thanks for that, Vanessa. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Smith. And thank you very much for the update on the CONDOT projects. I know this is not on the agenda, and I just wanted to say, I know that myself and some other members, council members, have gotten some emails from some residents over there, especially the Elton Court area, all that. And I know I see, Paul, you're on the call. And my colleague, Councilmember Shanahan, talked about the tree canopy. Is this another opportunity for us to kind of have some conversations with CONDOT, you think, about some of the trees that I know they've clear cut a bit there too with that project? Or is that kind of in progress, TBD? Not to put anyone on the spot, but yeah, just curious.
Which project, Mrs. Johnson, the one on?
Oh, the median project. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's the plan. They're gonna submit to us. So we already have the verbal commitment that they're gonna add more trees than originally. And some of them, I think that also goes close to the Strawberry Hill as well. And then, but they are upgrading they have a landscape consultant that is helping them, and we asked them to, as soon as that is completed, to send the drawings to us. So we're gonna even be able to know exactly what they're gonna be proposing. And hopefully, if we don't think that is good enough, we're gonna send our comments and try to get the best to the city. But again, that project has a dedicated website and also a public outreach. And even our customer service has the flyer. There is a whole website about it where people can, any questions be directed to them. And they also heard all the concerns about all the trees that they cut it. So all the upsetting that the Norwalk residents felt, they heard about it and they are acting on it. What is good.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that, because I know that you all have been such, dedicated staff about our tree canopy project. And so I'm just grateful for all that you're doing. Thank you.
And one of the things that we asked for too is not only the more trees, but a greater quantity of larger caliper trees too.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Mr. Sotnick. That's, again, I appreciate everything you all are doing and your commitment to the tree canopy. And sometimes, it's difficult. We've got to work with different entities, but I see you advocating, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
Ms. Young.
Thank you. So I just want to jump back to the Woodward Avenue issue. So I just want to thank you, Ms. Nora, for bringing the issue up and for your very detailed information, Vanessa. It was, as I said, it was very insightful. But I think that question from someone in District B, the information was shared at a public meeting in the district. And I think the presentation that you just gave would be great at another district meeting, community meeting. So I will try to make that happen within the next month or so, because I think it was very insightful. And I think it's worth sharing that information with residents.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Young. All right, so are there any other questions about, current projects, anything else on the list here? That anyone needs information for their constituents? Oh, okay, well, that looks like we are going to wrap up the meeting. There is one more thing. There is an open house, and Vanessa, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and tell the public about the Public Works open house that's coming up.
I don't think it's anymore a Public Works open house because it became so big. And now we have fire, police. So I think it's just open house. But we are happy to report that, after COVID, we had to cancel again last year. But I think that it has been 2 years that we haven't had to have one again. It will be on October 1st. It's a Saturday. We're changing the time. We're starting a little bit earlier. So it will be from 9 to noon. And I hope to see everyone there. Bring the kids. There is always the touch a truck, you know, you can also visit, get a tour at the WPCA, you know, although the smell is not the greatest, but it's very entertaining. Also, all public works will be there. There is always like a lot of fun stuff for the kids and also for the adults to learn about it. So again, it will be October 1st between 9 and noon. And we truly believe there will be a lot of people coming into it this year. So you're gonna see flyers, you know, we usually advertise through the social media and all that. But I just wanna let you guys know that we are less than a month from it. So by our next meeting, the event will be gone.
Can I interject one thing?
Sure.
This was a cool idea. I got this at our convention. I think the city should pick some charity and allow parents to be able to have their kids have names on our plow trucks for the season. Last year, we started with the fingerprints, but this year I say we name the plows after whatever politically correct they
Good
want,
idea.
but pick a donation and make it fun. Make people want to come to Public Works and make it like a feel good. That's what we're supposed to do. So just a thought moving forward.
It's a good thought, Chris. It's a good thought. Thank you. Okay. All right. So I guess that wraps everything up. I will ask for a motion. Motion.
Motion to
Okay, Ms.
adjourn.
Shanahan, you got it. Okay, motion to adjourn has been made. All in favor, raise your hand. All righty. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.